I don't even know what to say, Maria.
What could you possibly say? You're here to kill me.
What happened to you? I don't know who or what you are.
Most of the time, media is really easy to categorize. Rap, pop, dance, horror, action, drama, comedy. In video games, there are shooters, slashers, beat-em-ups, stealth, sports, and more. These classifications only serve us to help understand and explain a piece of media to others, but at the end of the day, they might be more deconstructive to media discourse than just about any other topic related to reviewing stuff people like or really like. One of the buzziest genres in recent years is Soulslikes, in reference to the Dark Souls series of games. But because Soulslike as a genre is new, especially when compared to a media genre like comedy, which potentially dates back past 400 BC to ancient Greece, its defining factors are a little less defined. Video games, unlike other media, can also strangely name genres after specific titles like Soulslike, roguelike, Metroidvania, which at the end of the day only serves to pigeonhole games even further. People tend to mostly focus on how close other Souls-like games are to the Dark Souls series, and not what makes a game great and unique. Today, I'm reviewing a game called bladesoffire from action game veterans Mercury Steam. They've made a few games over the years, but are most famous for their Castlevania Lords of Shadow series, and some impressive Metroid games they've made for Nintendo. Truthfully, whether this game is a Souls-like or not is up for debate, but I'm gonna call it one because I'm honestly not sure what else to categorize it as. It's an action game for sure. Role-playing game? Well, I don't know. What is a role-playing game? A game where you inhabit the role of a character? Isn't that most games? Is it a game where you level up? Well, this isn't that at all. There are almost no player stats to improve. Some people would remove the Souls-like tag right there. Blade's protagonist Aaron Delira can find gems that when collected in groups of 4, much like similar upgrades in God of War, increase the only 2 base player stats in the game, health and stamina. It's deceptively simple. The variables in combat then come from the weaponry, which is forged by the player from materials gained in battle. There are 7 different weapon types, and new weapons are unlocked by killing enemies wielding that weapon. The actual forging reminds me of the Atelier series and how it allows for a wide array of materials and outcomes. Even making the exact weapon twice yields different results depending on the materials. Each enemy has resistances and weaknesses to different weapons, and a very useful colored outline on the locked-on enemy reveals their reaction to your current equipped weapon. Swapping on the fly is easy and necessary for dealing with intimidating mobs. Additionally, instead of using a single button for attacking like most Souls-likes, bladesoffire has 4 different directional attack buttons: up, down, left, and right. Each of these can also be held for a heavy attack. The player can certainly button mash the same attack to moderate success, but each direction only really has 2 to 3 moves that link together in a direct combo on the same button. It's in varying up the attacks that the player can string together some really impressive combinations. Sometimes the enemy outline will have specific vulnerabilities, and directional attacks let the player exploit them. It ends up being surprisingly reminiscent of the fighting gameplay of Bandai Namco classics Tekken and Soul Calibur. The environment also affects the player's range of motion. If it doesn't logically make sense to attack in a specific manner, the attack will not connect. Players need to think about if their attacks will collide with the environment before striking their opponent and pivot accordingly. Some weapons even offer multiple attack types like slashing, piercing, and blunt strikes. While wielding a spear, players can change stance to stab or swing alternatively. Warhammers have heads with blunt and piercing faces that can be flipped on demand. I'm sure I'm wrong about this, but it just really feels like every possible way one could swing and attack with these weapons is at the player's disposal, with a large degree of control over how it actually shakes out. In many ways, this combat is superior than what From Software has created for Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and their other games. We also need to talk about stamina. Every weapon gives you a portion of your max stamina, almost never the whole bar. This usually correlates to how heavy the weapon is and overall makes sense. The real trick is understanding that Aaron does not regenerate stamina automatically. He only does so when blocking. As such, it is very important to find time in tense fights to regain stamina. Going too aggressive almost always leaves the player open to punishment. It's reminiscent of the stamina regain mechanic in the Neo series, but I would argue that it's even more strict than that game. There are 3 main region maps to explore in Bladesoffire plus a small final dungeon. Each of the 3 maps is large, but the first is the largest and comprises about half of the game. Every environment is filled with detail and interesting characters. There are even bosses that sort of inhabit and haunt certain areas, not unlike Mr. X, Nemesis, the Baker family, and many other Resident Evil bosses. There's nothing more demoralizing than beating a boss, resting at the bonfire like forging anvils, and coming back to find the boss stalking the halls again. They can all be defeated, but defeating them for good means figuring out puzzles and mastering the environment. Between a forest settlement, a desert valley, and a snowy royal castle, there is more than enough visual diversity. Each map gets subsequently smaller, but that tempo ends up suiting the story, which is decent. The base ending for the game is a bit anticlimactic, but the true ending has a great twist. Unfortunately, it's locked behind a laundry list of chores that after 40 hours of play, I was personally not interested in fulfilling. I ended up watching the ending elsewhere here on YouTube, and I would recommend doing so to anyone who doesn't feel like essentially 100%ing this game. The devs recommend the hardest difficulty level, Steel, for Souls veterans. I played at that level, and while I enjoyed the game at that level, I think I would have preferred Iron, the game's version of normal. Steel takes a lot of the training wheels like objective markers and turns them off, but the player can turn them off optionally in Iron as well. I think anyone inclined to play Steel should totally do it, but should just know that they are asking for punishment. Without any objective markers, I had to really learn these environments. Without experience points, there's no reason to kill all the enemies one finds. If anything, it eats through the degradable weapons to just wail on enemies. This game makes players perfect the art of running past enemies, also called a corpse run. As in many Soulslikes, players need to run back to where they died. This happens here as well. Players drop the weapon in hand when they die. These can be forfeited and left behind, but even brittle, almost broken weapons can be traded in for resources. The whole pig gets used around here. Because of the constant corpse running, I started to look at these environments less like a Souls-like world and more like a Call of Duty map, constantly surrounded by death on all sides and finding the right moment to either strike or run. At the end of the day, this game is just as frustrating as it is fun, but I suppose I am a bit masochistic. I don't need to say anything else to really pitch this game, honestly. Anyone sick in the head like me and a glutton for punishment should just go for it. Bladesoffire is so unique in the action combat space that it's guaranteed to surprise anyone, and its difficulty options make it doable for everyone provided they're willing to pay attention and learn. Thanks for watching. Heckaton News is dedicated to covering great games like Bladesoffire and a whole lot more. Please consider subscribing today. Throw a like or comment our way to let us know you liked this video.
But talk will not eat these people, right?
Right. If you eat friends, you don't have friends anymore.